Hello, church. I pray and trust that you are well. I want to talk a little bit today about reopening. I know for some of us it's just a tremendous relief to see hair salons opening. Some of you were starting to look a little bit shaggy, so that's a really good thing. And for others, having certain clothing stores start to open up. Your children who haven't had new clothes in 2 months have outgrown them, and so that's a beautiful thing to see some of those things start to open up again. Restaurants, schools, lots of reopenings. And there are lots of guidelines and considerations to make as things reopen. And so people are asking, well, what about church? You know, here I am in the sanctuary, it's empty. When are we going to be able to meet again and worship together? And to be sure, we miss each other. We miss the fellowship, and we miss the support, the feeling of, we're in this together. We really miss rejoicing with those who rejoice and weeping with those who weep. We miss that kind of being together. But as we consider reopening, I really like Dr. Bonnie Henry's explanation and her kind of analogy as she talks about our transition back as being a lot more like a dimmer switch than an on-off switch. And I think that's helpful, a helpful picture as we consider what it would be like for church. And because the reality check is this, for many months still, we should expect our lives to be affected by the timeline that's set by COVID-19. And so we face some difficult choices, and council's kind of anticipating and considering some of these factors. And factors like, public health guidelines. They apply to our church too. Guidelines like, gatherings of 50 or more may not be permitted, for many months moving into the future. And stay home if you are unwell. And guidelines like wash your hands and don't touch your face. Practice physical distancing. Be vigilant in cleaning and disinfecting, right? And then also we have this responsibility to create safe space for volunteers and for staff and for the entire congregation. And also, what should we do with worship gatherings and small groups and committees and Bible studies and field of faith and building use and right, the list goes on and on. And again, in the spirit of that kind of dimmer switch analogy, we should expect kind of stages of regathering so that moving forward, there's going to be a number of steps, even if we can't put an exact timeline on each of those steps yet. And through it all, I guess, part of our role as a church is to remind each other and encourage each other not to merely be passive observers of Christianity. We don't want you to merely be passive observers of our recorded worship service here each week, right? What we want is for us to be active participants in the Christian faith, part of this story. Active participants in worship and in groups, and active participants in your Christian faith through Zoom meetings even, and by calling people on the phone and by visiting our neighbors and talking safely outdoors with others and gathering with Christians in safe outdoor spaces and active participation in our Christian faith means rejoicing with those who rejoice and weeping with those who weep, but finding new ways to do that. Ecclesia semper reformanda est, which is a fancy Latin phrase for the church must always be reformed. And it refers to this conviction that the church must continually re-examine itself. And so we are probably better to understand ourselves not as the Christian Reformed, that is completed, but the Christian reforming church. We're always being reformed by God's word and spirit. And so, what's the plan of the Terrace Christian Reforming Church? Well, at this point, we do plan to continue our combined worship services with Zion Baptist for the next month. And you should be able to see some of that plan laid out in the bulletin this week. But then beyond that, as we certainly look to the future, we need God's guidance and wisdom as we anticipate the future. And so what we need also is for you to pray. So please pray. Pray that a clear path forward would present itself. Pray for counsel and for staff and for tireless volunteers. Pray for continued health and safety for our church family. And maybe pray that God would continue to provide for our needs, even though we really long to be together, to see each other face to face. And pray that we would, in fact, always be reforming by the power of God's Word and Spirit to be the people and the church that God is calling us to be. God's grace and peace be with all of you.